How are you doing this fine Sunday evening, wherever you are on this planet Earth? I'm glad you're able to take the time to join me this evening. Sorry for the half hour lateness of this tonight. I just got back from watching a movie, Top Gun Maverick. Actually, I don't go to the movies very often, but this one fascinated me. I heard good stuff about it, and you know what? I actually liked it. It was actually a pretty awesome movie. Um, it really had that 80s movies feel to it. I felt at home. I'm sitting there like, hey, I know this. So if you took the first Top Gun in this movie and you put them back to back of each other, they would flow pretty naturally, I thought. But anyway, so that's where I was this evening and walked back, set up shop here, and ready to talk pedals tonight with you guys. And really, this last 2 weeks, boy, we had pretty big releases in the pedals arena. I note that this year that NAM is not happening for a lot of companies. A lot of people aren't going to NAM, Summer NAM this year. They're pulling out because of the 2 years or a year, or just basically 2 years of COVID shutdowns that they had slowed down that, and they started moving over to different forms of marketing and actually cheaper forms of marketing because it costs a lot to rent the booth and to transport your stuff across from wherever you're coming from. Yeah, not everybody's coming from Southern California. So the marketing seems to move more towards getting in touch with YouTubers. I mean, let's be frank, very few of us will ever have gone to NAM. I went to NAM only because I lived in Southern California and I was in the industry and I got asked to come. So I went early NAM back in the 90s. So, yeah, really just kind of one of those things where they have moved over to YouTube primarily as their marketing ploy. They give it to a bunch of really well-known, their product to a bunch of really well-known YouTubers, and you'll get a lot more exposure than NAM. Not like I said, not everybody goes to NAM. So we have seen quite a spread of interesting things come up in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, the Universal Audio Woodrow Ruby and Dream that Newland pointed out to me. Thank you, Newland, if that's you there watching right now. It's kind of a cool pedal, and I want to talk about that a little bit. And the next one was the Boss RE202 Space Echo, which is basically a copy of the Roland Space Echo. Now, the old one. Now, so let's start with Universal Audio and their pedals. Actually, let's just talk about pedals in general. Let's start from there. Let's go back. I showed you my Echoplex, my 1973 Echoplex, and I indicated to you this is like the early start of guitar pedals, and it was the early boost and delay pedal. Thing is massive, as you saw. I'm not even going to pick it up tonight because it's like picking up a ton of bricks. But pedals went from this down to this. So a lot of advances in semiconductor technology that's occurred in the decades from the 70s until now. In the IR arena, that being something that's come to the forefront in the last 5 years or so, that is also in combination with a lot of the old, the able to resample those older pedals and those older bits of gear and get pretty doggone close to a recreation of them. We have really have hit that zone where that 5% that I talked about last week that you get with vintage gear that you don't get with the recreations of it, they're really closing that gap. They're bridging that gap. There is one thing that I still don't think that they're ever going to be able to replicate. And I'll talk about that when we get to the Boss Space Echo, if I can remember. I'm sure I can. It's actually a very salient point. Actually, you know what? I'll talk to you about it now. I don't want to get into negatives first. However, one of the cons of something like the Boss 202 Space Echo recreation, which is basically taking a Space Echo and reducing it down to a pedal about yay big, and claiming that it really hits all the points of the original version. The only thing that I think that they can't replicate now is the variation, the chaos theory, the fifth law of thermodynamics. You really can't. You can't replicate that quite yet in a digital environment. That's one of the AI solution problems. That anyway, I digress. But the Space Echo were all made individually by hand by guys in Japan. And when they made these, each one of them were a little bit different. I have an Echoplex, as I just said, an EP3 from 1973, same year as Eddie Van Halen's Echoplex. He actually had an earlier one, and then he got a 73. I do believe it was 73 that he was using on Van Halen 1 onwards. The real test of it is that between his and mine, even though they're made in the same year, there's variances between them. They're not going to sound the same. His is going to sound different than mine, the one that he had. I would love to one of these days to be able to look up the serial number of his and see how close mine is to his. But the point is that chaos theory, that fifth law of thermodynamics that I mentioned, that entropy, you can't program that in. That's a wild card. And one of the things that made some of these units, and the same thing with pickups that we talked about last week, those old PAFs, is the fact that they were made by hand, and therefore, and on the machines, and the guy hit the button whenever he thought it was close enough, and that meant that no two were the same, and no two of these units are the same. So let's start off from there. I'll put that one little point out there. That's that one little 1% that I don't think they're ever going to be able to really bridge, is the fact that every one of those units were different. Each one of them had their own characteristic pluses and minuses. Same thing with pickups. So there's that. However, that said, I looked into the Universal Audio Woodrow Ruby and Dream. The Woodrow is their 55 tweed in a pedal form, very similar actually that's the Dream. I'm getting ahead of myself. 55 tweed. That thing is pretty cool. What they've done is they have used their proprietary technology to sample True 55 tweed, get all that into their IRs in terms of the speakers. You got 3 speaker choices that you can get, 3 flavors of that. They added in an EP3, so they sampled a 73 EP3 and they put that in there as a top boost. SD 3000 is the other top boost on it. That's an old Japanese-made kind of thing that was used as back in the 70s for top boost. So you got, and then the normal mode, which is just a straight up 55 tweed. Man, wow. This pedal board here, my ampless pedal board, is the same thing. It's made up of separate components, but the universal audio device is all of these components in one unit. Another small negative thing of that I will note is that if you buy the Woodrow, the Ruby, or the Dream, you are locked in basically to whatever that amp is. Now, if you are just an aficionado of a 55 Fender Twin, and that's the route that you want to go, you want to get that. Who had the 55 Twin? Who played that? Neil Young. Neil Young. So if you want to get that Neil Young kind of sound, then the $399 investment for each one of these pedals is well worth it. Because I think short of buying from the samples that I've heard on YouTube, I think with all these pedals, the they've really bridged that 5%. They've gotten really close. They can't get that 1% gap where every one of those amps were different and some of them had their. That is a thing that they're never ever, because it's chaos. And they can't say, okay, we're gonna make this pedal a little bit off from this one, a little bit. They can't do that in a mass production environment. It wouldn't work. That would create its own chaos. So they can't get that last little 1%. But I'll be honest with you, folks. Only gearheads really care about that last little 5%. The most general music listening audience, they're not going to hear it, man. They're not. They're not going to hear that 1%. So I think that these universal audio pedals, and I thank Newland for pointing that out to me, prohibiting me to taking a look into those, are awesome. Again, my system here is modular. That one you're locking into the one thing. In my one position here, all I have to do is pull the pedal out, and I can put in any amp simulation pedal that I wish to put in that position, and I can change the overall sound of my setup. If I had the Universal Audio Woodrow or Ruby or Dream, I couldn't do the same thing. You're locked again into that thing. So that's the only thing. However, setting up a system like this with individual components, and I have some pricey ones here and some not so pricey ones here, but you're basically talking about the cost of 2 or maybe even 3 of these universal audio. You could probably, for the price that I put this together, you could definitely buy 2 of those pedals. You probably get away with buying all 3 of them. So something to think about. That's how advanced this is. This is a huge leap. It's made something like this where this is how you had to put it together before, and they've really condensed it down to $1,200. If you want to have 3 great amps at your disposal for recording, this is the way to go, guys. For guys like me who don't like software-based amps, I have the PRS amps. I have all of them, the software-based versions that they came out with and released. I bought those. And I used them. I used it on the song Monica Butterscotch on the last album, the Asanoki album. And if you listen to that song versus the other ones where I was using pedals and amps, real amps actually mostly, there's a sharpness to it. There's just a tonality to it. It's a little piercing. As a matter of fact, it cuts through everything so much that I use it as my you can hear it from the opening of my show every week. That's Monica Butterscotch. That's those are those PRS amps that I use for that. I like the sound of it. I recorded it. Obviously, I must like it enough. But I just didn't dig it as much as I digged tube amps and some of the pedals that I had. A pedal like this speaks to a guy like me, and it also speaks to the guys who like software, because you can use the UA app. Right now, I don't know if it's for Android, but it's definitely on your iPhone, and you can switch. You can actually put it into app mode. Tell it, hey, I want Brian. In the case of the Ruby, which is what's that? That's an AC30. Hey, I want the Brian May sound. You hit that patch. It tells the pedal, go into this patch, and you can sit there in your instant Brian May tone. I will point out the negative of that as well. Guys, the point of all this is to find your own tone. You got to really seek out your own tone. You're not going to do it by replicating Brian May's tone. So yeah, these evolutions that have occurred in pedals like this is amazing, that you can go from something in the 70s like the original Space Echo or the Echoplex to the point now where they throw the EP in for free, the EP3 in for free. It's an amazing thing, and we have not seen these same strides in technology with guitars. As I said, it's just amazing to me. Even even pickups fundamentally are the same. Pickups have kind of hit a wall, in my opinion, that they just can't seem to go beyond. Uh, of course, I've seen the fancy ones, the gold foil ones, and the hybrid P90 humbucker type things. But no, it's just variations of riffs on the same piece of music. So, but the pedal market, pedals, wow, the pedal market has really bridged that gap um, in a lot of ways that are astounding to me. I'm not a big Kempler guy. I don't like the Axe effects. I don't like the Kemplers. I don't like the modelers either. Um, a pedal like this uh, is a modeler, but somehow with the tactile functions on it, and the way that it appears, it fools the mind into thinking, okay, this is not like those, this is something else. So that's appealing too, just from a marketing standpoint. The way that they designed it is brilliant. So that even appeals to a guy like me who ordinarily shies away from modelers. But that's kind of what this thing is. But my goodness, again, like I've said, the Ruby being an AC30, the Dream is a couple of different 60s fenders. That's why it's very similar to the F1 here that I have behind me pedal. It's black face, silver face fenders from the 65s. And each one of those pedals also has different top boost functions that they've added in of different models of different tube screamers, stuff like that, that you can throw in front of those all in that one little pedal. You put that here and boom, you're good to go. One of these days, they're probably going to start modeling the blues breaker. So, you can flip a switch and you can throw the blues breaker into your channel. And that'd be great. If they can really get, again, every blues breaker was made by hand and made differently. Everyone is different. Everyone has its pluses and minuses. Some of them are great, some of them are crap. Most of them are great. So kudos to Marshall for building these, because after 20 years, this thing is a rock. 30 years, this thing is a rock. Oh my God, this thing is 30 years old. Yeah, 30 years old. Almost coming up here in 2 years. So, yeah, dig that. They really have come a long way, an incredible way, the strides that they have made in the pedal market. Again, like I said, the only thing that you're going to run to, just to reiterate and drive that point home, is that last little 1%. Every one of the original units, again, made by hand, and there's a little bit of chaos thrown in there. And that's the thing where that's where the value is. That actually 1% is what makes the difference between a pedal version of the EP3 at $200 that you can get, or the 1500 that one will run you right now. 15, actually, I've seen them get up to 1800. They're climbing up there. I bought it at a fraction of that. And I'm never gonna let it go. It's mine. It's never going anywhere. That's another piece of equipment like the Blues Breaker that I've decided that, hey, you kind of lucked out in getting these things, and they actually do what they say they do. You better hold on to them. I don't use the EP3 very much. I used it. I used it on two tracks on the last album. I used it on the album that I'm working on. I'm sorry, right now, the current album. Belly Dancer, I used it on. Ran it through the effects loop in the back of my Laney, and then mic that. And also, I think the next day after that, I cut a song called "A Funky Good Time." Yeah, it's a rock song. Sounds funky, but it's a really good rock song. Yeah, it really gives you that extra thing. I had the pedal version that I tried out because I said it's a lot less noise. It'll be a lot less pain in the ass. But the point is that the EP3 pedals put out by Echoplex do not match the original. It's just not the same thing. It does something great. The pedals do something great. They do add to your, but it doesn't do the same thing. So again, That 1% is what people pay for. That's the reason why Les Paul from 1958, 59, and 1960 cost what they do. It's that extra 1%, the flaws and all. So something to think about if you're thinking about getting into the vintage pedal market, that you're not going to lose money. From an economic standpoint, pedals I think are a safer bet and easier to store and manage than guitars are if you're really going from that. And I as soon as I get two dimes rubbed together, which is very infrequent, I put it into vintage gear because it'll hold its value and I'll use it. If I buy it, it's something that I'm going to use. So it's a win-win, and it's only going to appreciate in value. So I'm actually paying myself to use it in that regard if I ever do sell it. Like I said, I have an old Maestro fuzz stain. Love it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the old Maestro stuff is awesome. From they started out in '65, and then they split apart. I think that's when by the time the EP4 came out, the company had split into two halves. So everything from '74 on down, you're good to go. Yeah, this is great. I love it. The thing is, again, like I said, I was hoping that the pedal version would make it a lot easier, and it just didn't give it to me. It wasn't the same thing. So in fact, you got a real one. That's awesome. Yeah, hold on to that. Don't let that go. Yeah, yeah. If you look at the front of this, oh God, where do I have this thing? All right, guys, I'll pull it up. Here. Okay. Okay. Put this here. So, yeah. So, when you turn it on, lights up. So your diode comes up, and your tape housing is in here. Yeah. So imagine going from this. This is an early pedal. This is an effects pedal. I know you're looking at it and you're thinking to yourself, that's Grandpa's, Radio Shack radio, but it's not. This is a pedal. And this is what those early pedals look like. They went from something like this. Okay, let me put this down because, guys, seriously, it is heavy. To, something like this. They've really made so many advances in the pedal market that, quite frankly, it's almost an embarrassment, in my opinion, to the guitar market. They've tried a lot of different things. They've tried, fiber. They've tried glass. They've tried metal. I saw an aluminum guitar in Japan. It was made out of aluminum, electric guitar. And they've tried a lot of things, but no, the real advances are in pedals, and that's the thing that I'm most excited about. So anyway, yeah, if you're going to get into the vintage thing, do it. I like vintage pedals. I have my pedal. Again, like I said, this is full of pedals. A lot of not the stuff that I don't have up here, I keep in that little case right there, and I can pick up that case and I can walk. Carrying, your Les Paul collection is not the way to go, man. It's storing. If you're going to store that stuff, pedals are so much easier. So if you're going to make an investment, I will make a case also in tonight's discussion that you might want to look at vintage pedals as investments. Yeah, no, not right now, man. Not live, because that thing is going to spill out. And I have got, not only do I have my pedals in there, but I also keep all of my spare guitar strings and whatnot. But I am, actually, if you want to see my pedal collection, the JPEG for this live stream that I'm doing right now, take a look at that. All the pedals up here and the ones down here, the ones that I haven't let go, which aren't very many, are, you can see them. Take a look at them. That's why I put it up, to show you that I have quite a pedal collection, and it fluctuates. Right now it's low, but it can climb up. But I use them all, and if it doesn't get used, it gets moved on. Like, for example, this came in. I told you guys that the 5mm that I originally bought did not work, and they sent me a replacement pedal, which, oh, sorry, wrong way. Replacement pedal. Again, this is a 2.5 watt amp, and pretty cool. And I was going to use it as the main driver of my ampless rig here. I've changed my mind. I've actually made a deal with my pedal guy on Monday, tomorrow. I'm going to be mailing that and a few others off to him, and swapping for more vintage pedals. We couldn't make the deal that I talked about last week on the Tech 21 New York pedal that I wanted to get from him, the Liverpool. Somebody snagged it. I was like, I thought it was one of you guys. I said, doggone it, I shouldn't have said anything. I said, yeah, maybe one of my guys, they got it, but no. Somebody snagged. Those go fast because, like I said, those things are rare. But he always gets cool things in. So when he gets something vintage like that, 90s pedals are a good place to start. You can get into 90s pedals anywhere from the $150 to the $300 range now, even still. Yeah, you want to get into, yeah, your Tech 21 pedals, all of those, all your Sans Amp pedals. Is that a Klon behind you? No, no, Jimmy. It's a Klon copy. This was made not in China. This was made in Indonesia. If you check out the channel In the Blues, our Australian brother, guitar channel, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he was promoting the company that makes these as well. Indonesian company. And what it is, they took an original Klon before they got outraged. This is a good 6-7 years ago, when they were still within the realm of reality. They made a copy of the circuitry. They looked at what was used, the diodes that they used. They claim that these are the same diodes that are original, and they put these out. There are versions of this that have come out since then that you can get off of AliExpress that I can't vouch to, because those are the made in China ones. The difference is that you'll notice that these have the inputs and outputs on the sides and the power up top. The Chinese made ones have the inputs and outputs actually both up top. Hey, Newland. Hey, man, sleep is better than listening to me ramble. We're just talking about pedals right now. I was asked about my Klon copy. Now, I don't know what a Klon Centaur, an actual one, sounds like. However, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, and that's my point, Jimmy, and that's what I was about to get into. I don't know what a real Klon sounds like, to be frank with you. But this thing sounds awesome. If this is, again, 95% of the way there to what a real one sounds like, I'm good. And I said $50 last week, but I actually looked it up. I paid $80 for it. But $80 versus, the $5,000 they want for the real thing, I'm not willing to make that kind of jump yet. There are some things that you do want the real thing. And if you got the money, and it comes down to that 1%. Well, actually, in this case, it's 5%. I'm sure that there's a 5% deviance between this and a real one. The real ones that I've heard on YouTube, listening with my good headphones, they have a chime to them. There's something in the treble that they don't have. You can EQ it in, but it's something that's inherent. 5K seems a lot for a pedal. Yeah, heck, Jimmy, that is the most expensive effects pedal outside of some of the stuff that is just, one-offs, and really just super geeks or nerds are really the buyers on those. Is that I always thought that this blues breaker here, I always thought that the blues breaker was also going to be one of those pedals, but it's leveled off. You can have a blues breaker for under $700 now, all day long. You probably negotiate that down to 550 on a particularly desperate buyer. But yeah, that Klon is an exception. $5,000 for those is an exception. I saw one on Wendy Melvoin, Prince's guitar player. She had one on her pedal board, and I was amazed by that. I was like, wow, Wendy has a Klon Centaur, silver, and it really it made the rounds. So when you got top cats that are using pedals like that, and the reputation that they have, then that's when you're going to get into that kind of market. And that's a very rare thing. The only thing that, again, like I said, that comes close to it in my mind is a blues breaker, and that's just because of the John Mayall Association. If more people, yeah, mayor. So if I know that Mayor has a Klon Centaur on his pedalboard. He has a Klon Centaur, and right next to it a blues breaker. And I just, for shits and giggles, I take my copy of the Klon and put it next to my real blues breaker and run through to see kind of what that tone is like. And man, it's beautiful. Like I said, they're two very light overdrive pedals. What a Klon does is different from what a blues breaker does, but they are both organic is the term that they like to use now, or it's a or clean boost. What it does is it takes your signal and it doesn't really color it. It has no coloring. Something like these Moore pedals, or a lot, or even something like these Joy Old California pedal sound. That these will color. Because that's what they're meant to do. These are old. Well, this is the amp in a box. I'm sorry, I should use overdrive pedal, but you guys get the point. An overdrive pedal, TR-808, any of those overdrive pedals are really designed to add a color to your signal. The Blues Breaker and the Klon do not. They're transparent boost, organic overdrive, whichever word you want to use. They take your original signal and they just make it the best it be, all that it can be. I guess is the best way. And you take two of those and you put them together, and you can get a really sparkly, very with depth to it, because the Blues Breaker adds depth to and the Klon adds that sparkle to your tone, and that's how they work. Is it worth $5,000 to get that, that extra 1% on the pedals? No. Only unless you're looking at it you're a serious studio musician and you got to have it, or you're an investor. Those are the only two categories now that I think that those Klons fall under in terms of practical use. Cats like you and I, it's not in our bag. It's just not something, and it's not something that we should be fixated on anyway. $5,000, that could go to a lot of stuff. And again, I got a little sidetracked there, but I was talking to you about those apps that you can get in these universal audio pedals, and how you can get the Brian May app. And I told you that's so far from what you really should be doing as a guitar player, as a musician in general. It's not even funny. It's actually a little. That's the thing that I don't like. Dial me in, a vintage greenback in my Cab Zeus here. Dial me in, vintage 30. That I can dig with that, because that's the amps that I need, and I can't afford to have a stack of those. I haven't got to Rick Beato level yet. I really, if I had settled down in one place in my life, and put a studio. I actually had a studio, guys. I had my first recording studio that I built, spent $7,000 on it in Los Angeles with my good friend Jock. We built it from the ground up, built a vocal booth, rented the property, um, built it up, put in carpeting, put in proper wiring, traps, and all that. And the owner's son saw it and decided he wanted it, and I lost $7,000. Let's just put it that way. Learned a very good lesson. But yeah, studios, I'm really into since I'm since obviously I've been into it for a long time. I've invested in a few of them. But cats like you and I, again, that's just not something that's in our ball. It's not in our wheel park because it's not something that we really need. Uh, yeah, that is really where you're at. So if you want to get into the pedal market, guys, uh, from an investment standpoint or from getting some really cool stuff, the 90s now is what you want to be shooting for, and that's still within the price range that I think is reasonable. Like I said, $150 to $300, and you can get some pretty cool blues breakers being at the top end of that. The clones being something that are just, those aren't even within the realm of reality. But you can get some cool stuff. But pedals. So, such advances in pedals, I guess, guys, is the theme of tonight's show. Uh, I am really impressed with Universal Audio. I think that if you guys haven't checked it out, take the time to check out that line. Again, that's the Ruby, the Woodrow, and the Dream 65. And tell me what you think. Would you rather save up for, however long it'll take you, depending upon your income, to save up for 55 tweed, which right now off the top of my head, as I seem to recall, last one I looked at was about $20,000, $25,000. Or would you spend the $400 and get this emulation pedal, and would your audience know the difference? And would it keep you away from seeking your own tone? I think that if you use that pedal just as your amp basis in conjunction with other pedals that you think that achieve your tone, then yeah, sure, why not? I think it's a great way to go. If you get it and you're sitting there and you're putting in the Brian A. Matt, app, and you're playing that and you're using that for your recording, you're cheating yourself out of yourself, because when somebody hears that song on the radio, they're gonna be like, wow, well, is that, even if you can sound like Brian May, nobody's gonna know that that's you, that's your tone. Your biggest goal as a musician is to establish your own sound. When you put on a Prince album, you knew it was Prince. When you put on a Queen album, you knew it was Queen. You get the point. Hopefully, if you listen to one of my records, you'll say that piece of crap sounds like Mike. But it still sounds like Mike. Because that's really your goal. And so pedals are a means to an end, but they are not the end all to that. There's no shortcuts to this thing. Last week we talked about pickups, and this week we're talking about pedals. And I bring both of these up because that hunt, guys call it gas. I don't see it as, seeking your own tone as a musician. Sure, gas is a part of that, but it's also up here as well, and here as well. You got these three things going. And you really need to chase that because nothing else will do. I have finally found a guitar tone that matches the one in my head that I've had all along. And it took a long time, since 2013, when I first set out to switch over from my Tele to humbucker guitars to get a heavier sound, that sound that I could hear that I kind of wanted. I just now in 2022 have achieved it. So, fair warning. Maybe some of you guys will do it sooner. I went through a lot of gear. I went through a lot of stuff. I found out what was right. I found out the pickups have to be low wound. You can't have hot pickups. I found that Alnico 2, 3, and 5 pickups are great. Alnico 2s are your better bet, safer bet. 5 if you're being adventurous, 3 if you're really being adventurous. I found that it starts with a great amp. I found that certain amps and certain humbucker pickups sound good. Humbucker pickups through Fender amps is the tone that I like. I was going the Marshall route and different variations of that until I started trying the Fender route. And I found out that that is the good basis for my tone. So I would buy emulations of Fender amps, is what I'm saying. So this also works for a guy like me. The Woodrow or the Dream is right up my alley. The Woodrow is the one that sounds really interesting to me. I like the idea of having a 55 tweed, but I wouldn't use any of the presets on it. That's not what I would use it for. I would use it as my basic clean tone. If I kick in that EP3 that they built in every now and then, that's butter, that's gravy. But I would use it as the basis and then use that down the chain with the other stuff that I have here in order to achieve my tone. And also, tone is in your fingers as well. That's why playing every day, whether you're recording or whether you're practicing or whether you're just sitting there noodling, that's really the other part of that equation is of getting your own tone. Now, that said, again, pedals have made such an advance that they've made it a lot easier for you to achieve those tones if you're listening to Randy Rhoads or if you're listening to, God, let's come a little forward. I'm showing my age when I talk about guys like that. We talked about John Mayer. That pedals have come out that have made it possible for you to get his tone and then branch off from there. Again, I tell you the story. There was a kid who loved Jimi Hendrix. And he said, oh man, I love Jimi Hendrix. I'm going to get a guitar like Hendrix. I'm going to learn how to play blues like that. And that kid turned out to be Stevie Ray Vaughan. There was another kid who said, oh man, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I love that guitar that he's got. Yeah, those guys are timeless. Yeah, they are timeless, Anthony. I agree. But we're showing our time and knowing who they are. And there's another kid who said, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan. I love his guitar. I love that sound he's getting. I want to learn how to play like that. And that kid was John Mayer. So you went from Jimi Hendrix to John Mayer. But if you listen to a Hendrix album, a Stevie Ray Vaughan album, and a John Mayer album, they're all different tones because those cats all had their own tone. They were inspired by each other, but they branched out from there. And I'm going to preach that to you guys. You're going to hear that, but I'm sorry. That's my mantra. That's what you're going to hear from me. Some of these YouTube channels are, know your tone. They're right. Absolutely correct. Phil McKnight, absolutely correct. The man is a genius. He knows what he's talking about. Seek your own tone. Find your tone. Know your tone is what I think he says. Really, that is the joy of this journey. It's not, oh, I've got this piece or I've got an EP3. The reason I bought this, I didn't buy this EP3 because I have the cool factor of it. Certainly it has that to it. But no, I bought it from a standpoint of how can it was that tone quest, and it just so happened that I was in the right place at the right time to get it. And some of these other pedals that I have here and gear. But it was all part of seeking a tone. And yeah, the EP3 is part of that. But it's like salt. I found out it's like salt and pepper, Sometimes you don't, sometimes the dish don't, you don't put salt on ice cream. At least I will, unless you're having salted caramel. Yeah, okay, bad analogy. You don't put pepper on ice cream. Let's go that way. And sometimes you don't need that EP3 pepper. But if your bass tone is there, whatever you add to that, whatever seasoning you add to that is only going to make it better. And you won't deviate from that. Once you found your bass tone, like I said, I won't invest in another Marshall pedal. I'm not interested. I'm interested in AC30 because I'm still trying to find that tone, Mesa Boogie tone, and Fender tones. I think I got my Marshall thing covered with the Laney. So flavors, but these pedals, the Woodrow, that's the one that I'm gonna go for myself. I'm actually seriously considering it. The Space Echo, the RE202. Yeah, man, I think that's a great pedal too. $500, $595. So that's steep, but they're saying it's an accurate creation. They're saying they can put that chaos in there. I doubt it, but they're claiming it. So these are kind of cool things too, but they are spices. They're not the main ingredient. You know, you, you can't live off of salt and pepper. You got to have little meat and potatoes in there to put it on. And your real meat and potatoes are your pickups in your amp. Regardless of how you achieve that amp sound through software, through hardware, through like these pedals, or through an amplifier, solid state or tube, that's the way you're looking for. You're looking for that tone. And it's a fun thing to do. It's not a drag. Gas can make you broke. You can overspend and then find out, hey, I might have to sell some of this stuff. You don't want to put, don't buy anything that you're going to have to sell later, or that you might think that you're going to have to sell later. That's another thing too with pedals. If you start investing in pedals, buy it because you're going to use it, and do use it. Get the pleasure of using it and know what it sounds like, because that's information that you can pass on to somebody else, like I'm doing right here tonight. But don't invest in one that you're not going to be able to hold on to, that it stretches. And a Klon is the epitome of that. Because who could have $5,000 tied up into something like that unless you are getting $5,000 a gig, and you're or more, or twice, three times that a night. So yeah, no, don't do that. Don't invest in those things. All right, guys. Wow, we have reached the 47-minute mark, and I babbled on enough about pedals, I think, tonight. 5 of you out there, I want to thank all 5 of you and everybody else who's going to watch this in the rerun for taking the time tonight to go down this little discussion. And this is not a one-way discussion, by the way, guys. This is us talking. This is not, I'm telling you what I think, but I want, if I say something that's BS or something that you want to chime in on, please do so, either in the comments section or during the live stream. This is a conversation. I'm really sharing what I've learned. I have been recording in the studio since I was 16 years old. So where did that put me? That was 1983. So I've been in recording studios since, professionally, by the way, getting paid, professional since the age of 16. And I've learned a lot of things. I haven't even got into keyboards or drum machines or drum sounds or drum kits or snares. I have a snare over here in the corner that I kept. I had my drum kit in my Singapore studio, but I don't have that kind of space anymore. I sold the kit. I kept the snare because I use that snare for snare replacements. I'll sit here and I'll mic it up and I'll hit that recording doing snare play. I know a lot of tricks. I know a lot of fun stuff. I've been around the block and I know a lot of shortcuts. And I want to share those with you because I don't think that spending a lot of money producing music either is the way to go either. I think that's going to be our discussion next week. I play all the instruments myself. I'm fortunate because I grew up in a situation, an environment in Los Angeles where I was surrounded by musicians in my neighborhood and everybody had a garage band. And so we would play musical chairs. I'd start out on the drums and I'd play a beat. My friend John, he'd be on the bass, and Drake would be on guitar, and another guy would be on the keyboard, and then we would switch. And then I'd be on guitar, and that's how I learned how to play all the instruments. Some better than others. My drumming is mama. I'm not the greatest drummer. because you know, it wasn't my thing from the beginning. I dig it. I like doing it for fun, but I really wouldn't want to be a professional drummer. Ooh, boy, that's a workout. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I make these live streams and videos to share with you guys, but I want it to be a two-way discussion. So hopefully you enjoyed this discussion we had tonight. I want to thank you guys so much for signing up and joining in. And this week's show is going to be part 3 of the Epiphone challenge. So I'm going to reveal to you the A, B, and C blind test, what guitar was which. Nobody's got it right yet. I'll say that much yet. I will leak that much out. I'll throw that out there. No one has gotten it correct yet. So in any case, we have that to look forward to this week. And I'm going to make a good point as far as that's concerned as well. So you have that preachiness to look forward to? No, I'm going to make it fun. I'm kidding. Until the next one, you guys have a good one. Have a good week and stay safe out there. And thanks for sticking around. Bye-bye.